Good morning. I would like to call the October 5th, 2023 Parking, Traffic, and Safety Committee meeting to order. And if we could have the roll.
Mary Lou McElwain.
Here.
Steve Pesci. Mark Syracusa.
Here.
Erica Wygonick.
Here.
Deputy Police Chief Mike Maloney.
Here.
Fire Chief Bill McQuillan.
Here.
Public Works Director Peter Rice.
Here.
Stephanie Casella, Planning Department.
Here.
Dave Allen.
Here.
Chairman Andrew Bagley.
Here. And I'd just like to welcome alternate Dave Allen, who may or may not be voting today, depending on technical difficulties.
Steve is now on as a panelist and on Zoom.
All right, can you hear us, Steve?
Good morning, everyone. I'm here.
All right, and with that, could we have the financial report, please?
Sure.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can I just interject something? I wanted to say something about Harold Whitehouse.
Oh,
Can
yeah.
I do that for
Yes, of course.
a quick minute? I saw Harold last week, and he sends his wishes to everyone. And I just want to acknowledge the years that he served on this committee. And he had that perspective of a longtime resident. And he misses everybody. He sends you good wishes to everyone. And I just want to acknowledge the time and the interest that he had on parking and traffic safety. Thank
Excellent.
you.
Yeah, I think we all admire his years and
Yeah.
years of dedicated
Right,
service
we
to the city.
acknowledged him at his birthday in July, but I just wanted to continue that. Thank you.
And with that, it would be a perfect segue to his favorite part of the meeting, the financial report.
I move to accept the reports.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Public comment. If you could keep your comments to roughly 3 minutes, that would be ideal. And anybody that wants to come up, just come up to one of the microphones, speak into the microphone, state your name and address, and talk about the topic that you wish to discuss.
Good morning. Esther Kennedy, 41 Pickering Ave. And I know that the corner is not on the agenda, and I appreciate that. However, I think I came purposely because we had people heading this way, and I saw the agenda at the last moment and kind of told them that we were not on the agenda today. But if you are on agenda, I've been asked to relay the message. If you do decide to do anything, please come and meet with us so that people can have a conversation. I know it's not on the agenda right now, and we appreciate that. I think people are really happy about that. But I would just ask if it does become on the agenda again, before you move anything, that you come and meet with the citizens and so they can have a conversation about that intersection. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, just feel free to come up to the microphone. If you have any comments, this would be the only part of the meeting where you can comment. And do we have any hands on Zoom?
Not at this point.
Okay, seeing no other speakers, I'll close the public comment. And we're going to go on to presentations from Monty Bohannon about the recent flash vote survey.
Good morning. I'm Monty Bohannon, Director of Communications and Community Engagement here at the city. And the city has contracted with a company called FlashVote, which is a service that does statistically relevant surveys of our citizens and residents. And our second flash vote was for downtown parking. And it was part of the larger parking utilization study. For this flash vote, we wanted to see if residents were aware of the Park mobile app and discounts residents can receive, as well as getting an idea of their experience parking downtown. And what this is it's a very targeted survey, 5 questions with an open response for a couple of them. And the idea is it's a single topic or very narrow focus. So what we can do, and you can go to the second slide, this is, we had 720 total participants for this flash vote survey. And what I'm going to be talking about today is under the locals only filter. So the percentages might change depending on what filters you use, because locals only are people who are who have who live in the city, and you can slice this data a little bit differently. So if you do all responses, that's anybody that might have seen it on social media and they could not necessarily live in town. So we're talking just locals only, but there are lots of different filters there. And if we go to slide 3, the first question that we asked is, how often do you visit downtown Portsmouth now compared to a year ago? And 84% of local respondents come downtown as much or more than they did a year ago. And that is, I think that's a good indicator that people are coming downtown, they're utilizing services downtown, they're shopping, they're going to restaurants, going to shows, all of that. And we can go to the next one. And then we asked, do you know Park Mobile, the mobile app that is now, as Ben Fletcher reports, the #1 way that people interact with the parking system? So we asked residents and locals, do you know about it? And 60% said that they have used it, roughly 60%. And the remainder said, 35% almost, said that they've heard about it, but they haven't used it. And only about 6% said that they didn't know about it at all. So that goes to, it appears that we've done a good job marketing that service, but there seems to be a barrier to entry there for a third of the people that know about it. And we can go ahead and go to the next one. The next slide here, this talks about for those people who haven't used it, that 34 or 40% of folks that hadn't used it, why they didn't use it. So 35, almost 36% said that they don't really park downtown. And I'll come back to that. And a lot of respondents said they don't want to add another app, that it was too burdensome, or that they were concerned about their privacy data and their information. And almost 25% apparently know where to park for free. And we can go to slide 6. So, like I said, that percentage of people that use other methods downtown, again, these are residents, bike, walk, scooter, or other ways to avoid parking a car downtown. Nearly 62% of respondents to this survey have used those methods. And I think that's something that we want to encourage, that multimodal transportation of keeping people who are able to come downtown through other modes, keeping them out of those parking spots to free them up for others. So I think that's a good indicator. One of the other things of note is 32 people said they have not come downtown or avoided a visit to downtown because of parking concerns. So I think that, again, goes to something where we can work on some messaging there about ease of parking, locations of parking, and by the same token, 37% of people said they had no trouble parking downtown, down at the bottom there. So I think there's some good information in this data. If we go to slide 7, there was a wide array of opinions in the open comments. This is a small sampling of about 315 open comments, and tried to pick those that had topics, that covered each of the topics in one way or another. So a lot about improvements to the bike ped plan, or closing downtown to cars. Number 5 there, especially looking at short-term parking, and also some about the difficulty interacting with the technology to getting Park Mobile set up. I think those are the big takeaways from those. All right. So I think biggest picture that the data tells us is that people who use the system, who are parking frequently, who use the mobile app, have less difficulty finding parking and parking in Portsmouth. People who are infrequent or rare users of either the parking system downtown or the app struggle or have more difficulty navigating either parking or the app. So that to me says that we have either an education problem or a technology barrier, not necessarily a lack of inventory in downtown. And so the next slide. So what are we going to do with this information? I've provided it to the parking utilization group and this committee. All of this data is published online. The survey results and all of the comments are published online. I put the link in the top of the presentation. I'll also share it. This presentation will go up afterwards. So I think this is a good set of data, but it is still only one data point. So I think, doing some more investigation in the work that the utilization group and this committee has done, I think this brings a little bit of a snapshot of people's perceptions of parking in Portsmouth. And I'll be working with the parking department to identify some of those barriers and help develop some messaging around what we might be able to do to alleviate those. And just a quick couple notes on some crosstabs that they ran. 38% of people who come downtown as much or more than they did a year ago report that they don't have trouble finding parking. 66% of that same group all use Park Mobile. 62% report using other modes of transportation, which again I think we want to encourage. But I think that's it.
Thank you, Monty. Does anybody from the committee have questions for Monty?
Does the filter include any the post-COVID, pre-COVID? Because during COVID and after the year after COVID, I don't think COVID's ended, but the whole downtown COVID mask.
No, this is a snapshot as of it's a 48-hour survey that ran for 2 days at the end of September. So no, it's just a snapshot of we asked more or less than a year ago. So trying to get back to thinking about sort of just coming out of the full front of the pandemic. But no, we weren't comparing to COVID usage. That might be some usage-wise. That might be something that parking has data on, but not in the survey.
Important to note that we just started using FlashVote, so we don't have previous FlashVote data because we didn't used to use this tool.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may add a little context to, so as Monty mentioned, that we have a parking utilization master plan going on right now, and our intent is to, the first task was to revisit the parking principles that were generated back in 2012, and the working group, which 2 members of this committee are part of, have been meeting. The chairman of the planning board is on the group, and we have some residents involved as well. And so that's kind of doing some legwork to put together a document that will be submitted to you all for your review. What we anticipate is getting that out to you in the near future and looking to schedule a public meeting to have general discussion relative to the parking principles, which are kind of guardrails for policy decisions. They're not policy decisions, they're kind of guidance documents. So what we're planning on doing is getting the parking principles out. You all get a chance to review them. We'll have a public meeting, get input, and then at our next meeting in November, we'll have the opportunity to approve those parking principles, which would then be submitted to the City Council. But these are not policy decisions. These are principles and guidelines. So it's really important because everybody, the residents and folks are going to be like, well, we want to adjust this, we want to adjust that. And it's like, yeah, those are policy decisions that will be, kind of framed with these principles. So this is, part of a larger program that we have going on. It's adding information for the master plan to be looking at. But the big takeaway in my mind is what Monty said is that, 80+% are either going downtown or have increased the amount of going downtown. So oftentimes we hear nobody's going downtown, this is a big deal, what are we going to do? And the data doesn't support that. So I just wanted to give that context. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation, Monty. I think great that more people are using Park Mobile. I believe the parking department is going to do what they did at the last election, which is have signups so when you go to vote, you can sign up for Park Mobile and get that discount, which is a great thing. And then the other thing is I did look through, I think there were like 300 comments about the parking situation in Portsmouth, and there was zero consensus there. We had everything from we have way too much parking to there's not enough parking and it's impossible. And there doesn't seem to be a consensus on the parking situation. Stephanie?
The results link, is that posted anywhere online?
You can get to it through the flash vote page on the website. It'll take you to the flash vote site that is for Portsmouth, and from there you can see the survey results. Okay. I will. I'll post this presentation as well, yeah, so if you go on the, I'm trying to think of where it is on the website. I think under the resident tab on the homepage of the website, there is a page linked there for flash vote, and that'll get you to the results.
I believe you can also just search flash vote in the search tab, and it'll pull up that page. So do you need a login to get to?
You don't need a login to look at results. If you want to participate, which I encourage every resident in Portsmouth to participate in flash vote, you do need to sign up.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Monty. And with that, we'll move on to new business. Item A is 293 Austin Street, request for temporary handicap parking space by resident. And the sample motion would be move to approve temporary handicap parking space at 293 Austin Street while parking is prohibited on Union Street during the construction project. And that's the Union Street separation project that's ongoing.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
If I could just bring up one point.
Yes.
Not relating to this spot, but going forward, there's been a change in handicap parking regulations by federal government. And so whenever we approve a temporary handicap space in the future, we'll have to have a handicap ramp next to it.
Okay, that's good to keep an eye on. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chapter 7, moving on to item B, Chapter 7, Section 7-A-402, bus stops designated, recommendations to update ordinance to reflect current conditions by DPW. Sample motion, move to approve proposed changes to Chapter 7 as presented.
Second.
Oh, are you making the
Did
motion?
you? Oh, I thought you just made the motion. Okay. I'll make the motion that we look at the ordinances for bus stops and taxi.
I'll second for discussion.
And I think this is another cleanup we're doing of the ordinance. There was a bus stop on the intersection of, was it Hanover and Congress Street, or High and Congress?
Congress and Bridge.
Congress and Bridge, which doesn't even exist anymore. So it shows you a little bit how outdated these can get.
So which ones are used now? I mean, we don't have basically we don't have taxi service in Portsmouth.
No, but this is just dealing with bus stops.
Yeah.
This portion of it.
Yeah, okay.
So these bus stops are referring back to a time when you would have a long swath of curb space reserved for buses. We still have bus stops everywhere,
Right.
but the only big area we have is on Hanover Street next to
Right.
the garage.
Right,
Or the one in
Market.
Market Square.
right. Okay.
We should point out that I have Market Square is eliminated here, but we should keep that in for now because we're not
Yeah.
eliminating that one. But that's
Okay. But the only buses that stop at these places, they're coast.
in Wildcat.
A Wildcat stops at all of these.
Not all of them, but
Oh, okay.
there's a couple.
Okay.
But most of these bus stops don't. None of these exist as a lengthy bus stop where
Yeah.
cars are not allowed to park.
Okay.
And that's what we're just cleaning up the ordinance to match what's actually in the field.
Erica?
Have we, I mean, most of this is just making the ordinance match reality, but have we run this by Coast and Wildcat? Are they on board? I mean, presumably they're on board because this is what's the physical reality, but.
Yeah, other than the one that's item, one of the Market Square ones, that needs to remain in here as F. But the rest of them are not bus stops anymore. They are still bus stops where you can pick people up and off, but it's
Signed,
not
but
a
they're not a
designated
pull-off.
no parking zone
Right.
where only buses can park.
Okay.
So it's not eliminating any ability to stop for a bus to stop. And I did reach out, The next, it's the other item under old business is related to the bus stop usage, and I have spoken to Coast and Wildcat about that.
Awesome. So the proposal is as in our notes, as in our packet, but we should keep F because that's a physical
Yes.
reality.
Yes, F would still remain in there, but the rest would become out. So
Who made the motion? So friendly amendment to approve with the modification? You made the motion, right?
I made the motion, right? So you want to amend that?
Seems like you should.
Okay.
Is it F or A?
What-
Excuse me, I'm sorry to jump in, but I didn't think you saw my hand being raised.
Steve?
it is, this one here at the bottom, it's,
It is A, Steve, you're correct.
is it? Okay.
So, and I just want to state, I think, Wildcat Transit, for transparency, of course, I work with UNH and Wildcat Transit, and we do use that Market Square bus pullout as the buses come in from Market, but it's a very brief stopover. But I think the best way we can describe that has always been an active bus pullout. And I would like to support the friendly amendment to keep that in, unstrike it, if you will, from the packet and the motion.
Yes, and that, I'm looking at it carefully, it is F.
A
that is-
and F. It seems like.
What's that?
It seems like it's A and F. They seem
No,
to say the
A
same
is,
thing.
A is referring to where the angle parking is now, in front of Thirsty Moose.
There's two of them. You can see on either side of High Street.
But it. Okay. Okay. Further down.
Yep.
Westerly? Westerly.
So as written, it reflects what the concern is, that we'll maintain, for now, the current pullout on Market Square as parking in the ordinance.
Yes, if we keep F in there.
Yep.
So I think we're all in agreement then.
As bus parking. You just said parking.
As a pullout for buses.
Right.
But we will talk further about that in one of the motions coming
Okay.
up.
Right. I know that's coming up.
Yep.
So for Layla's clarity, oh, sorry, can I? It sounds like we're moving to approve the changes except for item F should not be stricken.
That's how I'm understanding it.
And motion and second people are okay with that?
I'm perfectly fine. If
We're going to address
if-
that next, so.
If the committee feels like they want to review this before it's voted on, and I'm this because this is the first time a lot of people are seeing it, I would be fine to, if the folks who made the motions, to remove that and just wait a month so you have a chance to look at it. There's no rush to this. I mean, this has been this way for a while. So if there's more comfort, I for one feel like there's a little discomfort for folks, so I don't want to rush people to make a decision.
Do we want to rescind the motion and table till next month's meeting?
I would rescind that and
I'm good right now.
ask for postponement for more information to come up at the November or December. Meetings?
I recommend, read the proposed ordinance and look at the figure that Eric put together.
Yeah.
Because I think on a whole, it's pretty straightforward, but where people haven't seen it before, I think it's something we just want to make sure, people are comfortable with it.
Okay.
All right, so you're going to move to postpone till next month?
I move to postpone.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. Old business. A, High Street report back and recommendations on the proposal to remove parking spaces and loading zone between Congress Street and Ladd Street. And we have a couple sample motions here, or one very long one. Move to temporarily install 2 15-minute parking spaces and 2 standard inventory Zone A spaces in the bus bay on Congress Street between High Street and Market Street during construction of the One Congress Street project. Anybody want to make that motion for discussion?
I'll move to make that happen.
Second.
And discussion? Mark?
Yeah, this is part of the site visit,
Yes.
so I think, does everybody understand?
So Mark, if I may?
Go ahead.
So just for clarity for folks who weren't at the site visit and had the opportunity to understand the rationale, the One Congress Street project, at a minimum, will be displacing the parking on High Street during construction, which will be probably more than a year. So in an effort to mitigate the construction impacts, staff investigated alternative locations, and this parking bay, the bus bay on Market Street, was shown to be underutilized in terms of the buses actually, how they function. They don't actually pull into it the majority of the time. They actually just stay in the lane, and people get on and off the bus in the parking lane. They kind of double park, not in the parking lane, in the travel lane. So therefore, those spaces are often utilized for a 60-minute or 15-minute parking to jump in and get coffee. So it's already being used in this manner. So it seemed like a great opportunity to pilot this effort during construction, to see what the ramifications are. Would be, the Wildcat and Coast will be able to get data to see, and it's not a permanent change, but it is a change that we would recommend during construction, which would help minimize the impacts of loss of parking along High Street. It'll also give us the ability to monitor the effects of that loss of parking on High Street and better inform council relative to, potentially permanently eliminating parking on that section of roadway. So that's kind of the context for the folks that weren't at the walk around, but the intent is really to mitigate impacts during construction and to try to increase, if it's not being used as a bus pullout already for the majority of the buses, this is an opportunity to convert it to parking spaces.
I'll just add to Peter's point for those that weren't at the site walk. There's currently 6 spaces, 3 15-minute spaces, and 3 Zone A spaces. And what we'd be doing is effectively moving the ratio the same, so it'd be 2 and 2 instead of 3 and 3 is how we roughly came up with that ratio between 15-minute spaces and long-term parking spaces.
With the emphasis on temporary.
Right, this would go into the omnibus, and it could be for up to a year, and then we'd probably, in the future, the committee would have to revisit this and see, is it working, is it not working, do we need any modifications?
Or if the construction period is longer than a year, we'd have to re-up it.
Yeah.
Mary Lou?
Yes, I'm concerned about the safety aspect of this. I saw a trolley pull in right up to the curb the other day, and I thought, how is this going to work if the majority, we have to have 100% of the buses not pulling into those parking spaces? And what does it do for the pedestrians who are trying to get on the bus? Presently, it's not really ADA compliant. Anyone with a walker or anyone with a disability has to come down to the corner of High and Market, where there is a ramp off the sidewalk to get onto a bus. And I'm concerned about cars that are there. How is it going to be safe for people to be walking between these parked cars onto the bus? What's going to happen when usually two buses are lined up at the most, when traffic comes up from Market Street, comes from Daniel Street, and 2 lanes are coming in? So I don't know, I just don't see how this is going to be safe for everyone coming into that square.
I would defer to Eric. You have some
Give me some
standard
information.
Yeah, and we did
Details.
some, do we have the pictures in here?
Yeah.
So we watched it with video, and we see that when buses are pulling up, they're even when there's nobody parked in here, the majority of the time they're just stopping in traffic, and they're stopping to pick up passengers at this location right here, where it's a bump out. There's a bus shelter right here. This seems to be where they pick up passengers the majority of the time. There is a tip-down ramp here for this crosswalk, so if there is a handicapped person, they would have to use this ramp here. That's no change from what's happening today. There are no ramps within the bus stop itself.
Right.
So it's not changing that. We wouldn't, you could have, if the bus stopped farther back, you may have vehicles or, people walking between vehicles to get on the bus, which is, probably happening today. We've seen most buses are pulling up to this location to pick up passengers. In Market Square, Congress Street, in this location is 3 lanes wide. So when a bus is stopping to pick up passengers, you still have 2 lanes of traffic getting by it. So it's not the main bus stop that it used to be. Now that we have the major bus stop is over on Hanover Street. So we're getting 1 bus an hour. We've counted about 10 to 12 passengers a day getting on and off here. Not a lot. And So, and most of the time, the buses isn't pulling in even when the bus bay is empty. And we've looked at standards that are industry standards for when bus bays should be used, when they shouldn't. And this location doesn't meet that criteria. We're not having, buses aren't pulling over and waiting for long periods. They're
No.
just pulling up, either picking up, dropping off, and then they're on their way.
Right.
The traffic is not so heavy. It's in that range where it's easier to stay in traffic, yet they're not disrupting traffic too much. When they pull into the bay, then it's a little harder to get back out into traffic. They actually prefer to stay in traffic rather than pulling over. Traffic speeds are not great. The number of buses per hour are not heavy enough to warrant it. So there's a number of items that we've gone through to look at whether or not this is an appropriate spot for a bus bay, and it doesn't meet those criteria. So, but we're not looking to remove it entirely. A bus can still use the area if there's no cars parked in there, if they pull over if they wish to. And that's why we'll continue to monitor how it's being used and if there are conflicts and how often and what type of activity is happening.
I'm just concerned about it, using it 100% for all. We have Wildcat, Coast, and the trolley, the Pease trolley. All of Greyhound doesn't stop there.
No.
Right, Greyhound's on, yeah. So I'm just concerned about the safety aspect of it. If that can be addressed, I would be okay with it.
Yeah.
I feel like, in my opinion, it would be safer because now there's a consistency there that's not there today, where people are getting picked up near the tip-down ramp, on the bump out the sidewalk, instead of sometimes in the bay, sometimes not in the bay. I don't know that we're making this less safe. I think we might actually be making this safer with this. But, we can monitor this and then see what the video tells us.
Yeah, I think it needs careful monitoring.
Erica?
I'm concerned about safety and operations, but not about the bus side. I don't think the bus needs the pull off. I'm totally on board with no more bus pull off. I think best practice, most buses don't want to pull over. I think that's totally, I'm fine with that part. We can friendly disagree
Okay,
on that,
sure,
that's fine.
yeah. No, I'm not, I don't, but go ahead.
I am, however, somewhat concerned with adding parallel parking to this area, which is already pretty hectic.
Yeah.
It's not a super well organized area, and I think it operates less efficiently than it otherwise would just because of the complexity of the area. So I'm a little concerned that we're adding complexity to an already nuanced downtown environment. And I'm concerned about if we do stick 4 spaces there, I don't think a car can back out of a parallel parking space without pulling across the crosswalk, which I think is a safety concern. So those are my concerns. I like the idea of keeping the parking. I mean, I think when we did our site visit, all those spaces on High Street, I think were all full. And I got the impression that there were cars kind of circling that block trying to use those parking spaces. So I think there is the demand for, I don't want to just get rid of those parking spaces. I think it's a great, I applaud the creativity in finding a way to meet that demand. And I think regardless, we should try and find a way to continue to meet that demand. Maybe we can fit 3 spaces. I don't know about 4. I definitely think we should be monitoring it to see, and by monitoring, it's watching close by to see how that safety, the movements of the cars in and out of spaces are affecting people. But I'm also just worried that we're going to have more spillback on Market Street or on Daniel Street or Pleasant Street just because of the additional delay that those movements might insert into the system.
I do think from a safety perspective, it's worth pointing out that we did see a tremendous number of cars kind of circling. And when they circle, they come back out, they cross 1, 2, and 3, 4 crosswalks at a minimum. So
But
every
they're not
time.
backing across those crosswalks.
No, of course. But if there's no parking on High Street, you're going to reduce that traffic and then that, extra 4 chances for interference. So I think that's a win for safety. We did measure 72 feet, I think it was out.
84
or was it
feet, I think. is what-
84. Somebody had a long tape. And I don't think you'd be backing into the crosswalk, but we could entertain doing 3 spaces, which would give us more than enough. I mean, you'd have to back up really, really far to
Well,
enter
yeah,
the
I mean, I
crosswalk
think
then.
Air can run a turning radius of a car doing a parallel parking space to see if that 4th space would back into the crosswalk, but I think it would.
Yeah, the distance from the beginning of that yellow rectangle here back to the crosswalk was, I think, 95 feet. We stopped it short at 84, 88. But, 95, it almost is enough room for 4 25-foot spaces. If you've seen the parallel parking we did in front of Thirsty Moose, those are much longer spaces, just for that same reason, make it
Yeah.
easier to get in and out for parallel parkers. And you can see a lot of times, there's a lot of gaps. Sometimes people squeeze 4 cars into those 3 spaces, so there's plenty of room. And I think that's the idea that we want to maintain here, is make it easy to get in and out of these spaces. We don't want to make them too tight.
Yeah. I'm particularly concerned with that last car backing out into someone walking, basically.
I understand your concerns, and I thought we had considered painting the area so that it
Let's
made
get
it
that.
clear that people could not be parking up tight to the crosswalk. Eric, is it worth considering painting a radius as you're coming off Market to kind of push people out a little bit more
I would love that.
as well? Because, sometimes they crowd that corner.
Make good points. You are.
Yeah, as you're coming along here, we
Yeah.
can, do an edge line or something to guide them out here.
Yeah, to guide them out a little bit farther. I mean, there's already there's 2 stop signs coming into it.
Right.
There's a lot of activity. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I think it's a managed situation that I don't think anything's gonna. I don't
Can't
think
be
people
worse.
are going to rev up and drive out backwards really fast and run somebody over.
No, I don't think they're going to drive fast, but I think there's enough going on.
Yeah.
It's a complex enough environment that you're trying to see if someone's coming from this way. You're trying to see if someone's coming from this way. Is somebody crossing? Like, it's just a lot to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And it's easy for someone to just not see someone because of that chaos. So
Perhaps there's some signage or something, some treatment that we could do to
Yeah.
make it more visible for both the driver and the pedestrian, that, they need to be aware as they're going. I mean, when I go through that
Yeah.
intersection, I'm like always looking in every direction.
You have
most
to.
of the times.
totally.
Right.
I mean,
But you never know where people are jumping out and.
complex situations are usually safer because people are alert, but
Yeah.
where they're driving into a potential pedestrian is where I start to, we just need to monitor it.
I guess I'd point to the experience that you just said in terms of the Thirsty Moose. That's probably even more dangerous, a place to do parallel parking than here, because it's a tighter area and there's a crosswalk right
disagree.
there as well.
It's fine there.
And if people are pulling, and you think it's fine there. So what my point is,
It's not
I
by
think
a
it's
crosswalk.
comparable.
The crosswalk, it's not close enough to the crosswalk.
Yeah, I disagree. There's a lot of activity when people are crossing between those. They don't use the main crosswalk and they go as tight as they can.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just observing the
Chairman?
tendency for people. But
Yes,
Steve,
Steve.
I just want to add some comments. First off, I understand this is a temporary situation, but I think in general it speaks to, as we look forward to Market Square redesign, they need to think this through. I am concerned with anything more than 15-minute spaces in this area, because once you put the longer Zone A spaces in, you're kind of giving over the public realm to longer-term parkers, and I struggle with that. Eric, you have in the packet pictures of bus loading and unloading there. I saw it in the packet. I think it's the next 2
Yeah.
screens. I cannot speak to how Coast operates the buses or trolleys, but Wildcat, I'm concerned about disabled people. If you're in a chair, we load from the curb at that spot. So this is a Coast trolley. The design of the bus pullout was to give transit passenger safety and disabled people loading from the curb. I hope when we redesign Market Square, we can get back to that, because you're looking in the video image now of someone who's boarding the bus. What if they're in a wheelchair? How are they going to do this? So I'm not a big fan of the proposal. If we do it, I would like to see it limited to 3 spaces and short-term only.
I would counter that if we do short term, we're going to have more people pulling in and out, especially people that don't end up parking because they then realize it's short term, which we see constantly. So if we're concerned about the safety aspect, then short term would be counterproductive, as it's going to create more cycles. So I wouldn't want to see the back parking spots be short term.
So excuse me, Mr. Chair, is Steve saying just keep 2 15-minute parking spaces? What are you saying?
I'm saying that I'm happy with up to 3, but they'd be only short term, and boy, can we code those as like AAA parking rate? Because those are like the most deluxe parking spaces in all of Portsmouth. A seems inadequate.
I think that's a conversation for a different day. We have a lot on our plate already.
Surge parking.
This is, excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I think this is a complicated plan. And, 2023 is the year of the impatient driver. And I can just see that this horns tooting, people coming down Market Street, coming around the buzz, it just seems chaotic to me.
Mr. Chair, if I could. The proposal is to do a pilot. The proposal is to monitor what happens. That does not mean it has to be cast in stone pilot. Obviously, if we find things that need to be adjusted, we will adjust. So I would encourage everybody to keep an open mind. As Steve's saying, Market Square is slated to be upgraded. We're looking to do a public process in terms of the renovations of the square, and this is an opportunity to have additional information to help with the decisions, to see how, if we make a change like this, what does that mean to the function of pedestrian use, vehicular use, and if there's a potential for additional parking. I don't agree with Steve in terms of giving up public realm for parking. I mean, it's already a vast area that's given up to vehicular traffic. And we're not changing that square footage. We're actually just converting it from being a travel area to an area that we can use for inventory for parking. So I would encourage everybody to look at this as an opportunity to learn, and we can get more information.
Erica? Sorry, Mark, and then Erica.
Sorry.
No, I agree with there are safety issues in the sense of, go ahead, more paint, more signs to address their thoughts and feelings on safety. But it is a pilot program. So it rolls out, you measure it, and if we have to adjust with less paint or more signs, then so be it.
Erica?
I guess a couple things. I'm okay with this as a pilot, provided that we're monitoring and studying. I defer to Steve. I think he's our resident bus transit system expert. So I think he knows better than I do what our particular providers want, but it sounds like Eric talked to them, so maybe you can respond to that concern. And I guess the third point I was going to make, what if we make what if that last spot is for bike parking? We just heard that 60% of people are using a different mode to get downtown. Bike parking is hard to find downtown.
So towards the crosswalk side.
Towards the crosswalk side.
Yeah,
I like that idea.
that's a reasonable thought.
Do we, in the wintertime, though, we pull those
Would
up?
pull that up in the winter, but
Well, we can still, I don't know.
A bike corral.
Bike corral?
yeah, bike corral.
Big row.
Good idea.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion.
Or scooter parking to solve the scooter parking problem.
This is a complicated one. We don't need to add another complicated one to
Bike
it.
corral.
It's another.
Someday, Erica, someday we'll get there with the mopeds.
The naughty mopeds. Naughty moped corral.
So, yes,
I have an email from Coast, if you'd like me to read that.
I think that would be helpful, yes.
Okay, he says, this is from Michael Williams, Director of Operations at Coast, and he says, Eric, at this point, none of our buses lay over at the Market Square stop. They simply pick up, drop off as needed, and continue on. There are times when getting to the curb is important, such as if we have someone in a wheelchair using the ramp. However, it would generally not be an absolute requirement other than to get out of traffic. I expect when we're there, we will clog up the works a bit more, and there may be times when stopping in the road is less safe than others. We typically leave that to driver discretion based on the situation. We do think having the bus pull off is an important feature long-term, but Coast will not object to a one-year adjustment based on the city's needs. Thank you.
wait, was that from Coast or from Wildcat?
That was from Coast.
Okay.
And I did get an email from, I don't see it now, but from Wildcat at Beverly Craig, and she did not have an issue. She just would let the drivers know that what was happening.
So
I feel like that response, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
That response seems to corroborate Steve's comment that it is an important design for folks in wheelchairs.
Getting to the curb is.
Getting to the curb
I don't
is-
think eliminating that pullout, it precludes the use of the curb.
Yeah, no, just thinking about that.
So I think you have, just prior to the crosswalk, there's a pretty good section of curb that
Yeah.
comes right up to the street.
Steve, how do
Be
you?
used, but I haven't seen it used.
Well, what did you?
Yeah, I think that very small section of curb is where you're going to have to load if there's someone with a wheelchair. So we just have to be prepared that is maybe an infrequent but important need to accommodate.
Steve, what if we reached out to Wildcat and did a trial showing that, you know, they can accommodate, they can pull up to the curb and see how they would do it, and then that way, you know, we could, you know,
Yeah.
test it
I
and
think
prove
that,
it.
that would be
it's
nice, and you might get some insight in terms of how the temporary pavement markings might need to be put down.
Okay.
Like where the trash can is, in a way,
Yeah.
Yeah,
is
we
where
can-
you would have to
the
move.
trash can
So
can be moved.
move that trash can and
Yeah.
do whatever marking necessary to accommodate that.
Yeah.
There isn't a curb cut there, so that any disabled person has to come to the corner of High Street.
No, there's a curb cut just prior, I believe.
But they-
board,
the bus
with the ramps
kneels-
on the higher level curb. It's not a curb
Not one at
cut.
the crosswalk?
There is one at the
With the-
crosswalk.
It's right to the
Crosswalk
curb.
just out of the
But,
picture. If
but
you
the
go back a
bus
slide.
pulls up next to a curb and then
Yes.
drops, like kneels and drops a ramp. So
Yes,
it's
drops the ramp,
it's o-
exactly.
They don't necessarily need to go down the.
I think the whole idea of this is a pilot. We get the opportunity to bring a bus
Yeah.
in there, take a look. You know,
Yes.
if the sign needs to be the
Yeah.
metal sign needs to be relocated, that was
Yeah.
next to the trash can. You know, we can look at doing that. We can put additional
Peter,
signage.
the beauty of that is it works for both buses coming from Market Street, which is Wildcat and Suncoast, and Pleasant Street. So I think it can be worked out, and it would serve both bus services. And yes, there'd be some temporary modifications to be done, but try it. I'd support that as a trial.
So just to kind of recap, are we more or less saying support this as a trial with 3 parking spaces and 1 bike corral in the short term,
And some more painting and signs.
and more painting and signs as DPW deems appropriate?
Yeah, I would give staff flexibility relative, because we don't always, I mean, having a bike corral available, we don't have one on the shelf, so it'll take a little while to get that. You know, and by the time we get that, it'll be winter.
Right.
So, you know, I'd encourage us to have some flexibility. I'm not against the bike corral. I think it's a good idea. But I'm just thinking over the winter, if we're doing it over the winter, it might be something that we need to have a little flexibility on.
Yeah.
What's your bike corral schedule?
What's a bike? It's coming up this week.
Oh, you pull, okay,
Yeah,
they all
we
come
pull
out,
them. Yeah, they come out around this time.
Bike corral week.
and then they go April 1st or whatever.
Typically, yeah, more towards the end of April,
Oh, May 1st, yeah.
depending upon weather.
Right, that's just a question.
Mary Lou?
Mr. Chair, is the plan to get this started before construction? Is this going to happen immediately?
I would defer to Peter.
It depends on the need and what the construction schedule is in terms of mitigation. We haven't seen the CMMP put together yet, which is a Construction Management Mitigation Plan.
Right.
The other thing is there's additional construction in that area which may impact the parking separate from Mr. McNabb's project. So there may be maybe a need in the near term prior to their project to displace that parking, and this is an opportunity to look at that. So
Okay.
I would, I don't see,
Soon.
I think the opportunity is there to get it set up and try it beforehand instead of getting to the point where it's like, we got to get it done immediately.
Yeah.
This give us some time. We can set it up, think about it, and staff have the opportunity to really
Yeah.
look at it hard.
I think it's complex, and I think that there's a lot of planning going into this, and I think it's going to roll out carefully and with good monitoring as a pilot.
Mark?
Based on complex, can you read the motion on this?
Well, I have a question about the motion because it sounds like the original motion was for 4 spaces, 215, 2 standard, but now we're discussing possibly 3? Is that?
Why don't we revise the motion, if Director Rice agrees, to DPW to investigate providing parking spaces in this location in a safe and reasonable manner,
And report back.
and report back.
Second.
I guess we'd have to rescind the previous motion. I don't remember who made it.
Motion to rescind the previous motion.
Second.
Who made the,
Oh, I guess Mark will make the motion and then,
Rescind, she second.
Peter might have made the original motion.
he did,
Yeah, I'll rescind it.
okay.
that way we're not tying, if you get out there and you decide that 3 makes more sense, then we can go with 3.
Read your motion again, please.
To authorize DPW to move parking to this location
To
and
investigate,
investigate parking and
Report
report
back.
back.
report back. Do you want to put the parking
Good
in
line.
and report back? Because
No, I
Okay.
think there's enough concern. I think we need to detail it and say what exactly we're doing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Hold on.
Are we voting?
I think so.
Done.
There's a
We've
motion
got
and
a few
second.
other things that we want to get to.
All right, exactly.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, and then if I can get a motion to suspend the rules and bring up informational item D.
So moved.
Seconded?
And I think, there's some people here for Hillside Drive, and that's the update. This all kind of happened, I believe, since the last meeting. There was a fence that went up at what is considered the ABC condos, and it kind of cut off the Hillside Drive neighborhood
Right.
from the downtown.
Right.
So an intersection that we've looked at in the past, which is not really ideal, has now getting a lot more use. So we've made some kind of rapid deployment type changes, and this is an update on what we've done and what we plan to do.
Yes, there's a memo in the packet on the screen here as well. So what we're going to do is put a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, an RRFB, at the crosswalk on Lafayette at Greenleaf. That's the existing crosswalk, and we have one that's coming off of Deer Street due to construction that's happening there, so we can relocate that. It's a matter of getting the foundations dug and put in, and then we can move the equipment down there. We will also going to Trees and Greenery Committee next week and requesting the removal of the large silver maple tree at the corner of Greenleaf Ave and Hillside Drive. The tree is still in good health, but it does block sight lines at that corner. And so it would behoove the residents to come out and support the removal of that tree to the committee because it is in good health. It's not usually desirable to remove a tree that's in good health. We will also be putting a speed feedback sign on Greenleaf Ave telling drivers how fast they're going coming down the hill from Lafayette. We have one that we can move over there from Aldrich now that speed bumps are on Aldrich. And we are also going to be putting up a yellow pedestrian warning sign on Greenleaf Ave so that the drivers are aware as they're coming down the hill from Lafayette that there are pedestrians in the area on Greenleaf. And those are the measures that we can do immediately. And we will also continuing to pursue possible easements through abutting properties and to look for another way out of the neighborhood rather than having to come up Greenleaf Ave.
Good.
Mary Lou?
Mr. Chair, I was wondering if a no right turn sign can be put at Greenleaf and Lafayette near where that crosswalk is.
Oh, for coming up Greenleaf, yeah. You can put signs up, but people tend to ignore them.
Okay.
For some reason, I mean,
Monitor this.
yep, because they could come down the other, to the signal
Well,
today,
yeah.
but they still come up from the bypass and take that right turn for some reason.
Just seems that
Yep.
no right turn would be a safety aspect for that
And that
crosswalk.
Are you
could
coming
be-
up Greenleaf, no right turn towards the high school?
Yeah, I mean, people can go, it's just,
Yep. It's-
hey Siri,
I mean, the left turn
point
in
me
my
to the
mind
high
is more
school.
dangerous than the right turn.
Yeah, it is. There's more,
I said the left turn is more dangerous than the right turn in my
Oh,
mind.
I think the right turn is dangerous for the pedestrians. That's what I'm thinking of.
Oh, for the pedestrians, yeah.
Chief Maloney, what do you think? Right, left, car accidents?
I wouldn't support putting no right, no left at that intersection. Not having the data at my fingertips, it is a tricky intersection, both left and right.
Right.
Anecdotally, there's nothing that comes to mind of that being a particularly high area for motor vehicle crashes or crashes involving pedestrians. I think if you prohibit right or left, you're going to have ancillary spin-off issues as a result of that are probably more problematic than saying no right or left.
Thank you, Chief. Mary
Maybe
Lou?
as we see more people using that crosswalk, we might have more data on the right-hand turn safety aspects and maybe the neighborhood. group can help us with that.
Yeah, and I think the long and short of it is we're doing a bunch of things right away because this
Yes.
situation was more or less
Right.
created overnight,
Right.
not through an act of the city.
Right.
And we have some long-term things we'd like to do, but these are the short-term measures that
good.
we can do.
It's great.
And we're going to continue to investigate all the long-term measures as
And
well.
then the residents can give feedback, and they will.
Yes, the residents have been great about having neighborhood meetings and trying to come up with a plan.
Yeah, I would encourage, if we want to enlist folks to give feedback, we should put together a metric for like how and a training, kind of criteria, because we don't want to just have extraneous data that, oftentimes you do pedestrian counts, bike counts, things like that. You give a quick training to somebody and say, here's how you do it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't just say, we want to solicit input, because everything's dangerous when you're standing 2 feet away from a curb and cars go by.
So you want to use Hillside as the residents as a pilot?
We're ready.
Yeah.
I would recommend that we, pursue these short-term actions. I agree with the deputy chief that, to make traffic decisions without having the data is not a good approach. So I would not be supportive of that.
Yeah, I think let's get these, and I think the surveyors were out there recently, is what I heard, for the rapid flashing beacons.
Oh,
So
for
they're-
the dig safes, yeah.
So, I mean, it's moving as quickly as these things can move, and once everything's in place, we'll have a better understanding of
Good.
pros and cons, I think. So that's just an informational item.
Yep.
If we jump back into the old business, B, State Street two-way traffic study, report back on status, and the sample motion is move to accept report and forward it to the city council. Do you want to give a brief synopsis, or we've already kind of been over this one?
Yeah, our consultant made a presentation on this a
Yep.
couple months back.
Thanks,
So this
Erica.
is the written report that goes along with that, summarizing how the study was done and the findings of the study. So, in summarizing it, the model looks at the traffic flow and looks at the conditions both with and without the bridge opening and one-way versus two-way. And generally, the traffic will work. What it doesn't take into account is that you also have other conditions out there, such as narrow lanes, narrow parking, loading zones, where trucks don't always obey the rules and squeeze into the spaces they should and disrupt traffic. So it's certainly something to keep in mind as going forward. From a pure modeling standpoint, it works, but in reality, on the ground, you do have other factors that play into it that we need to consider. If we were to make sure that trucks weren't blocking travel lanes, we would have to possibly narrow sidewalks to get wider parking spaces and loading zones. It's undoing work that was done years ago to make this the street it is today.
Yeah, we would just be referring this to the city council. The city council requested this because for non-traffic flow specific issues, pedestrian comfort and utility, there might be reasons to switch to two-way. And I think what this study roughly says is it's feasible, but it's not without its headaches and costs. And then it would be a policy decision of the council to pursue it further or to place it on file, I think.
So moved.
Second?
Erica?
I'm going to recuse myself from this, having written that report. So I am not going to vote on whether it's a good report or
Oh,
not.
good. Dave, welcome to the voting.
I'm on it.
All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. C, Dennett Street traffic calming update. This is, or Eric, you have a, well, I'll make the motion first. Move to place on file.
Is that a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And
So this is going back several months ago. We had gotten a request from the neighborhood to do some traffic calming measures. We had proposed a bump out. The neighborhood didn't really like that, so we put up a speed feedback sign on Dennett Street. And these are the results we've gotten back from it, showing the average speeds are down around 22, 23 miles an hour, with the 85th percentile up in the 27 to 29 mile per hour range. So these are slightly less than we'd seen before the sign went up. So it is indicating that people are slowing down a little bit with this traffic calming device in place, and we will continue to leave the sign in place for the foreseeable future.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, informational items. Aldrich Road speed humps installation.
Yes, Friday, September 22nd, our contractors installed 2 more additional speed bumps on Aldrich Road up near the curve. This one is on the curve near Sewell Road, and then there's another one closer to Islington Street that was installed. And there's signage and pavement markings that go along with them. So,
Any feedback from the residents or the motorists?
I heard from somebody that lives on Sewell, and they love them. That just came up anecdotally yesterday. They said it feels more like a neighborhood now.
Oh,
There you go.
that's good.
That's feedback.
yep.
The one singular data point.
Well, it's-
Some-
They live on Sewell.
Yeah, and they don't live around. Yes.
They're like, oh yeah, they're great over in Aldridge.
Yeah. So, thanks for announcing you got an email from Sewell.
Bartlett Street Railroad Bridge Grant Award. Ooh, this is a good one.
Yes, so this is a grant that we applied for last December, and we just got word this past week from Federal Railroad Administration that we have been awarded the grant. It's a $460,000 grant to look at rebuilding, reconstructing the Bartlett Street Railroad Bridge, as well as realigning Bartlett Street underneath it to get rid of the curves in the road. And it also includes the at-grade crossings on either side of this, one at Barbary Lane, Maplewood, Green Street, Market Street. So it's a large grant. There's only 3 of these in all of New England that were awarded, and this is the only one in New Hampshire. It does require a 25% match from local funds, but this is great news and really a chance to get a major step towards replacing that bridge and fixing that situation.
So, Mr. Chairman, the city, in anticipation of this potential, which we didn't really think we'd get, we're very fortunate to get appreciative. We had identified the funding sources that we had some monies previously authorized from at-grade crossings, as well as some bridge monies that had been previously authorized. So, so we have the local match.
Excellent. And I think this is great, too, because railroad bridges are difficult for local municipalities to deal with. But if the federal government's spending money, then we have some federal weight behind the project, which is helpful,
Right.
not just on the funding side.
Yeah, because the city doesn't own the bridge, it's owned by the railroad.
Right.
The railroad will be a partner. We have to reach an agreement with them. They supported this originally, so we don't anticipate any problems, but it's benefiting their operations.
Excellent. And
Long
then-
time coming.
Yes.
Yes. C, monthly accident report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the month of August, we had 89 crashes overall. 50 of those were reportable crashes. We had no instances of bicyclists being struck by vehicles, but unfortunately, we had 3 pedestrian versus car crashes in August, which is unusually high.
Go ahead.
Where were those 3?
That was my question, too.
One pedestrian crash was on Banfield Road. A resident was struck getting mail by a rearview mirror of a car. Second one was during a monsoon heavy rainstorm in the parking lot of Home Depot. And the third was at the intersection of Marcy and State Street. That was a fatal accident.
Marcy and State was a fatal?
Oh, we talked about that already.
Yeah, yeah, that happened.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, yep.
All right, thank you, Chief. We've done item D, so item E, outdoor dining barrier removal.
Yes, this is just informational that the last day of outdoor dining is next Monday on the holiday, and then the restaurants have the next day, the 10th, to pick up any materials out in the street. And on the 11th, our crews will be coming through to pick up the Jersey barriers and remove anything that's still on the street, because right after that, we are doing paving projects downtown. So it's very important that we get this material out of the street so we can get paving before we lose our temperature window.
And the EDC has proposed outdoor dining parameters for next year to the council, which is getting revised into an ordinance. So we don't know what it'll look like next year, but we'll know shortly. And then finally, removal of Woodbury Avenue speed cushions and Bartlett Street roundabout.
Yes, so in anticipation of the winter season, our crews are removing both the speed cushions and the roundabout in the next coming weeks, in the next couple of weeks. After the barriers are removed downtown, then they'll move on to removing these other materials, so. Before we have the plows.
All right. Any other questions or miscellaneous?
Yes,
Mary Lou?
I'd like to bring up the electric scooter issue, if we can, to December meeting. I mentioned that last month. We don't have any ordinance regarding electric scooters on the sidewalks. We do for parking, but not for usage. And I'm getting people talking to me about the electric scooters. And, you know, the state law is over the age of 16. I would say that there are younger kids using stand-up electric scooters in Portsmouth. So I'd like to bring it up as a discussion, not this morning.
Okay.
But bring it up.
We can,
So this is the stand-up with the handle, you push along type scooter.
but they're now
You
battery
don't push them.
powered.
They're electric.
Battery.
They're
The new-
flying.
New technology.
Yeah, they're
Well,
either.
they're razors.
Yeah, but they're more like
Razors
just
with motors.
the bird scooters that you see in bigger
Yeah.
cities,
Yeah.
where you have a throttle and you don't have to kick.
We don't have any rentals in Portsmouth for electric scooters yet, I don't think.
Not like a bird style, but I
Right.
think there might be, you might be able to.
Anybody
rent them.
renting
But we
bikes?
can. I'll inquire
Yeah.
with legal and then see if we can get something
I'd
on
like
the
to
agenda that makes sense
bring that up.
based on their feedback.
Okay, that's it.
Erica?
Can I ask about Cleft Drive and South Street? I saw there's a feedback sign that went in that looked like a bigger trailer for.
Oh, yeah, that was one of our mobile sign trailers. We had just reprogrammed it. We were putting it out at each school location for a week or so. At the beginning of school, during the day, it says school's open, dry, slow. At night, it shuts off, and then, I think at 3 or 4 o'clock, it runs, it shows your speed, and then at night from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., it shuts off completely. So that's our speed sign there. We're going to be moving it over to Dennett Street this week. We did Dondero, we did Little Harbor, and now we're going to move it on to Dennett. So that's ours. You'll see it around the city saying different things and doing different things.
Thanks. Can we get like observations of that intersection before people are less apt to walk and ride? I'm really concerned with the just design of where bicycles are supposed to travel there. And I think if we're going to make observations, we need to do it before the biking season, the heavy biking season is over.
Eric, do we have any video footage of that?
This is the South and Cloud Drive?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we do, so we can get some out there, take some video out there.
Be great.
So it may not be by the next meeting, but your concern is noted. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll
Thanks.
try to get it while pedestrians and bicyclists are still active.
Yeah. They go all year, but it's like very.
Yeah, it's best to get it in the warm weather, I would think.
Yeah.
All right, with that, I'll join the meeting.
So
Thank you,
one, before, if I could, I just wanted to, Monty had spoken to the master plan parking utilization, which is really all things parking, study that's going on. Steve Pesci and the chairman are both members of the working group. We're looking to have probably a public input meeting, and we'll be talking about this more at the next working group meeting, sometimes towards middle end of, probably in a couple weeks. But so I wanted you to just have it in your back of your head that, there's probably something that's going to come out if you want to participate in that public meeting. You should get a copy of the parking principles that have been reviewed and approved by the working group for your review.
Good.
So there is, it's pretty much done from the working group standpoint, and so now we just want additional input. But remember, this is a guiding principles. These are not policy implementation type things. It's more to inform policy decisions.
And these are we were working off the 2012, which I believe
Previously
were in this
accepted.
packet.
Right.
Previously accepted, just to see where the starting point was.
Yep.
And speaking of public meetings, Woodbury Ave and Bartlett Street,
Yep.
well,
So if you want to,
yeah, we'll be looking to, after the speed cushions on Woodbury and the roundabout on Bartlett get removed, we'll be looking to have a public meeting to get the feedback, people's reaction to them, and, whether or not they want to have these still permanent next year or when these streets get reconstructed. So we want to get more feedback.
So when you take out the temporary roundabout, you put signs or stop signs are up?
We'll go back to the previous condition of the 4 stop signs.
Previous condition?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
And then the project will go out to bid with alternatives. One will be the stops. One will be the roundabout, and one will be, I think, the raised intersection, similar to Maplewood.
Is that going to be used, that survey program going to be used?
Probably not at this point.
Okay.
But, I mean, we can consider that, see if there's any utility to that. I mean, the flash vote is I'm not sure, because this is a very targeted audience. I don't know. I mean, it's worth discussion and thought if it's applicable.
See, yeah.
It's a new tool. I don't know if we fully have decided the best ways to use it yet.
Well, the people, unfortunately, they rely on social media to measure their thoughts, but it wouldn't hurt to do a survey.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Because that's the only, I want to read how people
Yeah, I want to
feel.
make sure it's statistically valid.
Yeah.
And that it's
Right.
not weighted to just
Yeah,
certain-
numbers,
Yeah.
not looking at someone's thoughts, feelings.
Yeah, I mean, people feel very strongly when you change the configuration of a roadway, whether it changes it for good or not. There's a perception that if it's different, it's not good. And the treatments that have been used are shown to be tried and true. They're not radical, risky, dangerous things. So, it all comes down to the end of the day. What's publicly going to be acceptable, I guess, which is not necessarily the best way to do design.
All right, and on that somber note, I will adjourn the meeting.
This is the way people.